Naomi James stepped off the small-town bus with a single suitcase and a heartbeat that wouldn't slow down. The sky above her stretched wide and endless, a soft gray morning over endless wheat fields and silent roads. It was nothing like Atlanta. No noise, no rush, no one who looked like her. The letter she held in her hand was already crumpled from being read 100 times. Ethan Miller, Willow Creek Farm. Her new husband. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not in this quiet corner of the world. But when life gives you nothing but rejections and closed doors, you start knocking on the ones nobody else will. The ad had been short. Farmer seeking wife. Must be willing to work. Must be kind. She was both. When the bus left and the dust settled, a tall man in worn jeans and a white shirt stood by an old blue truck. His eyes were pale, his face half hidden under a cap. He looked like someone who hadn't smiled in a while. "You Naomi?" he asked. "Yes," she said softly. He nodded once. "Let's go." No welcome, no handshake. Just that. But she followed him, because she'd learned not to expect much warmth in this world. The drive to the farm was long and quiet. Fields rolled by in waves of gold and green. Naomi sat straight, holding her suitcase on her lap like armor. When they reached the house, a big white farmhouse standing proud against the hills, she noticed everything at once. The wind chimed by the porch, the empty rocking chair, the quietness that had a story behind it. He carried her bag inside. "You can take the upstairs room. Dinner's at 6. She looked around. "You live alone?" He hesitated, then said, "Used to be 2 of us." Something in his voice shut the door on that topic. That night, Naomi sat alone at the dinner table, eating stew she had cooked. He didn't say much. Neither did she. But when she looked up once, she caught him watching her, not with hate, not even with surprise. Just a kind of careful curiosity, like he wasn't sure what to make of her yet. Outside, the wind moved through the fields. Inside, 2 strangers sat across from each other, both pretending they weren't afraid of being seen. Weeks passed, and the house began to breathe again. Naomi cleaned, cooked, fixed old curtains, and slowly added warmth to rooms that had forgotten it. Ethan started talking more, small things, about the weather, the crops, the horses. He taught her how to feed the chickens, how to drive the tractor. She laughed once when she stalled it, and that laugh, that simple sound, made him look at her differently. But small towns notice everything, and they talk. At the feed store, people stared a little too long. At church, whispers followed her down the aisle. And one afternoon, 3 men pulled up in a truck while Ethan was mending the fence. "Morning, Ethan," one of them said, grinning. "Heard you got yourself a mail-order bride." Ethan didn't look up. "You heard right. She ain't from around here, is she?" "Nope." The man smirked. "Yeah, figured. Didn't know you liked your coffee that dark." Naomi froze where she stood by the barn door. She heard the laughter. Low, ugly, mean. Ethan straightened. His voice stayed calm, but sharp. "You boys finished?" They shuffled, but Roy, the loudest one, stepped closer. "No harm meant. Just surprised you'd mix up your bloodline. That's all." That's when Ethan moved. Not with his fists, but with his words. "You ever say that on my land again, I'll make sure you regret standing on it." The laughter died. The men left. Dust trailed behind their truck like a snake disappearing into the road. Naomi didn't say anything. She didn't need to. The way Ethan looked at her told her enough. He was sorry she'd heard it, angry that she'd ever had to. That night, he found her sitting on the porch, looking at the stars. "You knew they'd say something," she said quietly. "Yeah," he admitted. "And you still let me come." "I don't let people tell me who belongs in my life," he said simply. She smiled, small, tired, but real. "That's easy for you. You don't walk into rooms and feel like you're trespassing." Ethan turned toward her. Then maybe it's time they learned what belonging looks like. For the first time, Naomi didn't feel like she was surviving. She felt like she was being chosen. The next months were a mix of peace and tension. Naomi learned to ride horses, to harvest early corn, to wake with the sunrise. Ethan started leaving her notes. "Coffee's hot. See you in the fields." Small gestures that made her chest ache. But the town's eyes never stopped watching. At the diner, she overheard a woman whisper, "She must have trapped him somehow." At church, someone slipped a note into her Bible that read, "Go home." She didn't tell Ethan. She didn't want him to fight her battles. But he knew. He always knew. One evening, the farm was quiet, too quiet. The air felt heavy. Ethan was out checking fences when Naomi heard footsteps on the porch. She opened the door and found the same 3 men from before, drunk and laughing. "Well, look who's playing house," Roy sneered. "Thought we'd see if the rumors were true." Naomi didn't back away. Her voice didn't shake. "You should leave." Roy stepped closer. "You don't tell me what to do, girl." Before he could take another step, Ethan's voice thundered from behind them. "She told you to leave." They turned, startled. Ethan stood there, jaw tight, fists clenched. He didn't shout again. He didn't have to. His anger was the kind that didn't need volume. Roy spat. "You're ruining yourself for her." Ethan's voice was low. "I'm saving myself because of her." The men left, muttering, but the fear in their eyes was new, not of Ethan, but of the truth they couldn't stand to face. When they were gone, Naomi broke. The tears she'd held for months spilled over. "I don't belong here," she whispered. "No matter what I do, they'll never see me as enough." Ethan took her hand gently. "Then we'll stop trying to make them see. We'll build something so real they can't look away." And they did. Spring came early that year. The fields turned green, the barn got repainted, and Naomi planted flowers along the porch: daisies, sunflowers, lavender. For the first time, the house looked alive. When the annual town fair came around, Ethan asked her to go with him. She hesitated, remembering the stares, the whispers. But he said softly, "If we keep hiding, they win." So she went. The fairgrounds were full of faces she'd learned to fear. But when she walked in, hand in hand with Ethan, the air shifted. People turned, looked, whispered. Some smiled awkwardly. Others turned away. But then, something unexpected happened. The mayor's wife, an old woman named Clara, came up to Naomi and said, "That pie you made for the church supper, it was the best I've had in years." And she meant it. It was small, but it was something. Over the next weeks, more people began stopping by the farm, not out of curiosity, but respect. They bought produce, asked for advice, even smiled at Naomi. Slowly, the walls started to crack. Ethan knew change didn't come from shouting. It came from showing up. One evening, months later, Naomi stood in the field as the sun set behind the hills. The light hit the wheat in a way that made everything glow, like the world was made of gold. Ethan walked up behind her, holding something small in his hand. It was a ring. "I was saving this," he said quietly, "for when you stopped looking for permission to be happy." Her breath caught. "Ethan," he slipped it on her finger, "you don't owe this town a thing. You don't owe me either. But if you'll stay, I'll spend the rest of my life proving that you were never the mistake."